timed it. I think it's around 15 minutes. So, but and when I'm done, anyone who wants to say a few words about him, share some memories, the floor is yours after I'm done. So you can take my time when I'm speaking to rehearse what you want to say, but you better listen to. Luis Jose Tavares. Louis. Lou. Slugger. Louis the Legend. A great man who led what I thought was a legendary life that defined the American dream. He was a man of his time. Old school. A strong work ethic. A provider. A character. A jokester. A giver. A man with a huge heart of gold. He had a magnetic personality who made friends with strangers, no matter their background, as if he'd known them for years with his trademark, "Hey Slugger, how you doing?" It was a greeting that just made you feel good. Hey, I'm a slugger. Hey, you feel good. He was a devout Catholic. He was well known and loved at his church here at St. James. And he was a man that could curse with the best of them. He could sail a blush, as they say. He was a father of 8 children, 15 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren, and counting. His legacy is that of family, devotion, and unconditional sacrifice for the betterment of his family and those he cared for. His story is a unique human experience in a rapidly changing world about living the American dream. His is a story of immigration, of integration, of love, family, struggle, hard work, devotion, overcoming obstacles, joy, laughter, heartbreak, resiliency, achievement, redemption, and coming full circle. It would make a great movie. I really do think that. That story began on April 20th, 1937, on the Caribbean island of the Dominican Republic, in a town called San Jose de las Matas. He was the firstborn of 5 from his mother, Luz Rodriguez Tavares, and father, Luis Emilio Tavares. He was also the firstborn of 9 children on his father's side. Between him and his father, they've created a whole battalion of family members, and the need for a lot more space when creating a family tree, as Angelo can attest to. I interviewed him a few years ago, and we spoke for a few hours about his beginnings and his time in DR. I was always curious. Unfortunately, my recordings got wiped out from my previous computer, and I lost the recorder. And I'd always meant to go back and re-interview him. You always feel like you have more time. But I never did. I never got the chance. But I remember a lot from those interviews. Growing up in El Campo in Dominican Republic, killing chickens for food, milking goats, using the latrine, and power was optional. DR at those times. It's third world living in the 40s in the Dominican Republic in the country. One story that stood out that he told me of was when his father took him and his younger brother Hector out into the woods to go, and I've told this story, to go do something. So they're following their father, they're going out to the woods, and the father is in front, and they're out in the woods, and wait here guys, I see something. I'll be right back. And he goes off, Elmer Fudd like, and they're there standing there waiting for him. He wanders off, they wait, and they wait some more. Finally, it starts getting dark, and they look at each other, and I don't think Daddy's coming back. And we need to find their way home. So they held each other, and they just kind of walked through the forest trying to find their way home. They were out, and imagine how dark it was. This is DR power. You got the lights. Hopefully it was a full moon for them, so they had a night light to guide them. So anyway, they finally find their way home, and they walk in the door, and what do they see? Is their father at the dinner table, cutting his food, eating his food. Dad, what did you do? You left us out there. What? Why? What? He goes, good, you made it home. Making a man out of you. All right, good job. And you know, I highlight this as an example of Dad learning to become resilient and self-reliant, because that's what he was. And I'm not at all advocating taking your kids to the woods as a way to develop these skills. I'm sure there's better methods out there, but it seemed to work for him. When he came to the States at 12 years of age, he lived with his grandmother, Mama Luba, and her sister, Nenena, and cousins Dooley, and was it Vilma?
Yes.
Vilma, okay. Titi Mirna is the one of the, and Titi Kathy are kind of like the archives I go to for back history. They lived in an apartment on 174th Street in Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan. This was an area that is mostly Dominican now, but had very few Dominicans back in 1949 during the Trujillo era, where no one was allowed to leave the country. His tía Mercedes, I'd say, was a Christopher Columbus for my grandmother's side of the family, and blazed the migration trail through her connections. You think we could probably divulge what those connections and get more detailed info. Dad's mother, Luz, and his 4 younger siblings, Hector, Judy, Floralba, and Rafael, remained in DR and didn't come permanently to Washington Heights until a few years later. Mama Luba and Nenena worked at a factory and had put a jar aside to save money to help bring the rest of the family stateside. And my dad used to shine shoes as a kid, and he put that money in the jar to help save to bring his mom and brothers and sisters over. And it was just an early example of his token big heart and giving nature. Being dark-skinned and Spanish-speaking, he dealt with a lot of racial tension in the era in Washington Heights, and grew up in literally a West Side Story environment in the 50s, having run-ins with the Irish who lived there at the time. And he told me some interesting stories. He told me he joined a gang called the Diablos, and about some of the fights he'd had with the Irish, and that he always had this depression in the back of his neck. It was around his trapezoid area, and always as a little kid, I put my finger in it, sitting on his back, and I'm like, what is this? And as an adult, I finally asked, what is this thing, Dad? It looks like, and he goes, I got stabbed in a bar fight.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Wow, interesting. So he boxed for a little while. A guy named Barney, he mentioned Barney Felix. This guy used to hold boxing camps in Washington Heights, and I looked the guy up, and he was actually the referee for the Ali Liston fight.
Wow.
So he did boxing with that guy and did a little amateur boxing. He told me he had a tryout for the Phillies to play baseball. He's Dominican, he had to be good. So, but with work and responsibilities, he said he skipped out on the tryout.
Oh, wow.
And I can't confirm it, but hey, Barney Felix is real. That probably was real too, knowing the life that he lived. At 15, he had his first child, his son Louis III, Butchie. He had 5 more daughters, Susan, Diane, Janice, Luann, and Linda, with his wife Diana. And they had 6 children by the time they were 25. That's the Brady Bunch minus Alice. I used to joke with him all the time, and I'd tell him, like, damn, Dad, Trojans, Ramses, it's hard to fathom and imagine the burden of responsibility that came with raising 6 children at such a young age. He hustled, and throughout the 50s, he worked odd jobs to support and provide for his growing family. He worked as a parking attendant in Midtown Manhattan Garage. He told me he worked as a chauffeur, and that he used to pick up a lot of people, a lot of famous people actually, from the airports to take them to the Midtown hotels. He mentioned DiMaggio, and he name dropped some other people, and I just can't remember who they were. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Harry Truman.
Wow.
Was it Truman?
Yeah.
See, thank you, Harry Truman. Yeah, that was pretty cool. He got his big career break in 1963 and started working for the Metropolitan Transit Authority as a unionized New York City transit bus mechanic, where he remained for 25 years, able to retire with a pension at 51 in 1988. That's only 6 years older than I am now. When I think about it, I'm just like, wow, this guy really, he set himself up pretty good. Dad met my mother Well, I also want to say that Dad also, I want to recognize him here. He also had 4 other siblings besides the 5 I mentioned. There's Titi Kathy, Theo Carlo, Theo Lewis, and Titi Ada. Titi Ada was 47 years younger than him, by the way. So Abuelo, you know, he was the original Viagra. He met my mother in 1969 at a friend's party and told us that he fell in love with her at first sight. He was 32 and she was 18 when they met.
Wow.
I didn't think about it much at the time, you know. I mean, as mom, as dad, you know. But as I got older, and I was like, Dad, you really rocked that cradle, didn't you? You know, you really like, you know. But it was a love and devotion that, though rocky at times, it would endure until she passed away 3 years ago. He loved sports. He loved sports. He was really good at baseball. Again, I said he was Dominican, so you know it's in the genes, it's in the DNA. And he played softball for his bus depot, and I remember going to a lot of the games as a kid, and he was loved by his teammates, greeting them, hey Slugger, hey Slugger, hey Slugger, hey, that's Tavares' son, how you doing? And, you know, it was a good time. I remember that, watching him play baseball. And he loved watching all sports as well. He loved every single New York team, the Giants, the Jets, the Yankees, the Mets, the Knicks, the Rangers. He hated the Islanders. He hated the Islanders. And I remember during the early 80s, when the Islanders won 4 straight cups, they played the Rangers every single year, beat the Rangers every single year. And my Uncle Hector, Melissa's father, was an Islanders fan. So Dad used to go over at Uncle Hector's house, and they'd watch the games, you know, and get drunk and I thought a fight was going to break out because they would just start yelling at each other. I mean, the smack talk was unbelievable. New York sports was a passion for him his whole life, and his passion watching games also, as people know, was a sight to behold. His emotional swings during a game was classic outrageous dad. His trademark, fucking shit, get me out of the fucking shit, they should fire this whole fucking team. The next second, woo, score, come on, let's go. I mean, it was something to behold. It was so traditional of him, and unfortunately I followed in his footsteps. Nancy can attest to how crazy I get during games. I can get, I try to mellow out. Dad loved to fish. I remember he used to take us, me and my sister Lori, to Orchard Beach, City Island, take us fishing. We'd catch flounder, snapper, other fish, filling the buckets, coming home to prepare, cook, and eat our catch, and watch out for those fish bones going down our throats. Growing up, Dad used to give us sage advice and encouragement, like, be smart, don't be stupid. And come on, Alex. Which, if you take a positive view, it meant you can make it if you try, son. Don't give up. I thought my nickname growing up was, what's the matter with you? What are you doing? What's the matter with you? And actually, what it really meant was, son, you need to think things through before you act out and about possible consequences. In our Bronx neighborhood, growing up during the breakdancing days in 1983, he got into a boxing match with Gino from the New York City Breakdancers. I don't know if you guys remember that. And just took the quick, because they used to hang out by the park. My dad used to sit in the park benches, drink with his friends, and he'd just sit there, and they were walking by, and he was like, look at these guys, they think they're tough. And he was like, you guys ain't tough. And they were like, what, old man, what are you talking about? He was like, you want to see tough? I'll show you tough. And you know, I remember those park benches, 2x4s. He went like this. He went, pow! And he cracked it. I didn't think it was true, but his friend was like, that thing cracked. I heard it go. I was like, so they were like, whoa, whoa. And all of a sudden, they arranged a boxing match. And I'm playing in the park, shooting basketball, doing, hey, Alex, your dad's out there fighting with Chino from the City Breakdancers. What? Let's go. And I'm out there. They had his arm tied up. His punching arm, and he had boxing. So he fought this guy, he was half his age, with one arm, and an arm tied because they didn't want him punching him with that arm. I swear to God. And they're fighting, and they fought, and they boxed, and it was they gave him a lot of props afterwards. It was all peace and love. And I was like, that's just so typical dad, you know, he put himself in these things. In '84, Dad met with doctors, and they told him that if he kept drinking the way he did, his liver would shut down, and he would be dead in a few years. He entered AA rehab, and he conquered drinking in 1985. Never to touch alcohol again. Until our trip to DR last year, but
Yeah,
I'll get there, Dad. In summer 1987, during the height of the drug and crack epidemic, Dad was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Walking out of the elevator on the first floor, he witnessed a drug deal gone bad. And to make a long story short, the guy with the gun saw him, see him, made him get into the apartment, put a bag over his head, had him get on his knees with the two old ladies that lived there. And apparently the guy didn't have his money, so he could just hear, and he's thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And the guy shoots and kills the other guy in front of him. And he tells them, he says, if you guys say anything, I know where you live, I will come back and kill you. So the police came afterwards and asked him if he saw anything. He was like, I didn't see nothing. He knew better. So after that, I think it sparked something in him, and he decided it's time to leave New York. He was going to retire in about a year and a half anyway. So in summer '88, we bought a house in Port Richey, the house that he's in now. And they dragged me kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go. I was going to live with Angelo. But you know what? They drugged me down here. I had my own room for the first time. I can get used to that. He was always active. He started working at a golf course to make extra income. In typical dad fashion, he picked up the sport really well, and he used to win competitions for longest drive. My sister related the story to me that Lori said that she told him that once when he was golfing, he got bit by a snake as he was golfing. And he just shrugged it off and kept on golfing. He had to finish his 18 holes, and then he showed them the bite mark when he got home. Hey, look, I got it's like a big old welt. Now she's dead. He then mowed lawns with his neighbor Kenny for a while, but he always had his golf clubs and continued fishing as his hobbies and watching sports all day. He had stents placed in his heart, his carotid artery in the 90s. He was a fighter, just dodging more bullets, And then after my sister Lori and myself moved out to make our own lives, he and my mother helped raise his grandchildren, Nairi and Zakim. And so I always say he unofficially had 10 children. It was a blessing in disguise, I think, for him and my mother. It gave them purpose, and he so did love and care for them. He was a devout Catholic. Again, he put my sister and myself through Catholic school growing up, and attended the local St. James Church regularly. He delivered Meals on Wheels, and as Father Michael said, attended Mass every day after passing my mom. After having lost touch for years, he was finally reunited with his baby daughter Linda from his first marriage, and she sought him out for a very long time, and found to her surprise that he only lived an hour away after looking for him for so long. I cannot express to you how much it meant for him to reconnect with one of his children from that part of his life. It was something he always kept inside, but he always loved them, and he never forgot about them, and he thought about them constantly. And you can see the joy in his eyes in the pictures he takes with Linda. You can see that in the video. His devotion to my mother, whose health had been in a steady decline since the start of the new millennium, and began having more, not only physical issues, but bipolar episodes, was unwavering. He took such good care of her, dealing with her ups and downs in her health. He would get frustrated at times, but I always understood it to come from a place of despair and helplessness about her health. I always admired him and appreciated him for standing by his lady until death do they part. After my mother passed away in 2014, he began to visit us more regularly in New Jersey, and he reestablished his connection to his family that he somewhat lost when he moved to Florida, and he reestablished his role as the family patriarch, as being the oldest of that generation of brothers and sisters. He came to 3 straight family reunions that we would hold at Angelo's Bungalows up in Ellenville, and he reconnected with some of his grandchildren as well, who he'd lost touch with for a long time. And I'll never forget his reaction when he met his granddaughter Tanya. She's the splitting image of his daughter Janice, who passed away in 1996, and the flowing tears from a man who didn't cry often. Last year we took a family trip to the Dominican Republic. At 79 years of age, it was his first time back to his home island in 67 years since he came to the States. It was a very emotional, momentous moment for him to return to his homeland after so many years. And did he ever celebrate? In typical dad fashion, he took over the pool area and put on a show for folks. I swear to God, it was like he was the host, telling jokes, being a character, getting drunk. And he was so full of life and vigor. It was like, I felt like he just went back in time. It was unbelievable. It was so amazing. And I mean, it was like he had the fountain of youth, and he had women a third his age fawning over him. We had witnesses. I couldn't believe it. And I'll tell you, and things started to get a little freaky. They started shaking in front of him, and he would just kept doing this. They were shaking in front of him. He'd go, "Oh! Oh! And he had the place in an uproar. And he'd come in and he'd take a break, and I'd come down there, and where's your father? It's quiet now. But, Nancy and mine's close friends who we traveled with coined the phrase, Louis the Legend, during that trip. And that's exactly what he was to me. He was a legend. He was a unique life story that can be turned into a movie. He lived the American dream. I repeat, a story of immigration, integration, love, family, struggle, hard work, devotion, overcoming obstacles, joy, laughter, heartbreak, resiliency, achievement, redemption, and coming full circle, and leaving an indelible footprint on those who he crossed paths with. We lost a rock, a pillar, an anchor, and a great friend. You are gone, Dad, but never forgotten. And you will live on in the memories of those who are fortunate enough to know you. We love you, Dad, and you are reunited with Mom and family. This is not goodbye. This is until we meet again.